Welcome to Agent Amigos. Today's talk, Qwen 3.8 27B, the open-source giant you didn't know you needed. Sit back, this is going to be worth your time. Here is the complete script for the first 7 chapters, each 220+ words, totaling over 3,300 words for all 14. I'll deliver chapters 1 to 7 now, with the rest to follow. Chapter 1. The new kid on the block. Did you know that in 2023 alone, over 100 new large language models were released to the public? That's a new model every 3.5 days. But every once in a while, one comes along that makes you stop scrolling. Qwen 3.8 27B is that model. It's not the biggest, not the flashiest, but it's got something special. Today, we're going to unpack why this open-source AI is turning heads from Silicon Valley to Shanghai. And trust me, by the end of this talk, you'll see why it matters to you, even if you're not a programmer. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's start with a story. Back in early 2023, a team at Alibaba Cloud was working on something called Qwen. It was their answer to models like GPT-3. But they didn't just want to make another chatbot. Chapter 2, What's in a Name? You might be wondering, what does Qwen even mean? It's not an acronym. It's not a person's name. Actually, it's a combination of two things. Qwen comes from the Chinese word 4,000 asks or 1,000 questions. And the 3.8 refers to the version and the parameter count. So when you say Qwen 3.8 27B, you're literally saying 1,000 questions, version 3.8. With 27 billion parameters. That's a mouthful, but it's also a promise. This model is designed to answer your questions, no matter how many you have. And the 27B is the key. Parameters are like the brain cells of an AI. They gave you the whole package, the code, the training scripts, and even the data pipeline. That means anyone can take Qwen and customize it for their own needs. Want to make a chatbot that talks like a pirate? Go ahead. Want to fine-tune it on legal documents? It's all there. This is a radical departure from closed models like GPT-4, which you can only access through an API. And it's not just about freedom. It's about innovation. When the code is open, developers can find bugs, suggest improvements, and build on top of it. That's why the open-source community has embraced Qwen with open arms. There are already thousands of fine-tuned versions on platforms like Hugging Face. Some are specialized for medical diagnosis. Others are tuned for creative writing. The possibilities are endless. And here's the kicker, open-source models like Qwen are often more secure. Because they're transparent, researchers can audit them for biases and vulnerabilities. You can't do that with a closed model. But here's the thing, the architecture isn't just about raw power. It's about efficiency. Qwen uses something called MO, or Mixture of Experts. That means it has specialized subnetworks that activate only when needed. So when you ask a question about math, it uses its math expert. When you ask about history, it switches to the history expert. This makes it faster and more energy efficient than a monolithic model. So you're not just getting a brain. You're getting a team of specialists working together. And that's a big deal. Chapter 4, Training Days. Training a model like Qwen is no small feat. It takes thousands of GPUs running for weeks. The process starts with data collection. The team at Alibaba scoured the web, collecting text from websites, books, and academic papers. Then they cleaned it, removing duplicates and low-quality content. After that, they tokenized it, breaking it into manageable chunks. Then the real work begins. They feed the data into the model, layer by layer, adjusting the weights millions of times. It's like having a brainstorming partner that never gets tired. But here's the best part, you don't need to be a tech wizard to use it. There are user-friendly interfaces that let you chat with Qwen right from your browser. And if you're a developer, you can integrate it into your apps using a simple API. The point is, Qwen is versatile. It's not a one-trick pony. It's a Swiss Army knife for the digital age. So whether you're a student, a professional, or just a curious mind, there's a place for Qwen in your life. Chapter 7. The benchmarks that matter. Numbers don't lie, and the benchmarks for Qwen 3.8 are impressive. Putting it to work. And here's where Qwen surprises people. In a study by the University of California, researchers tested Qwen on a variety of tasks, from summarization to translation. They found that Qwen outperformed models twice its size on several tasks. How is that possible? It comes down to training data and architecture. Qwen was trained on a diverse, high-quality dataset that includes a lot of code and multilingual content. That gives it an edge in tasks that require logical thinking and cross-lingual understanding. And the mixture of experts' architecture makes it more efficient. So it's not just about brute force. Ask questions, get answers. Simple as that. So the next time you hear Qwen, remember it's not just a product. It's an invitation. Chapter 3. Under the hood. Let's pop the hood and see what's inside. At its core, Qwen 3.8 is a transformer-based model, just like GPT-4 or Llama. But the architecture has some clever tweaks. For starters, it uses a technique called grouped query attention. That's a fancy way of saying it processes information more efficiently, especially when handling long conversations. Then there's the tokenizer, which breaks down text into chunks. Qwen's tokenizer is multilingual, so it handles English, Chinese, and a bunch of other languages with ease. But the real magic is in the training data. Qwen was trained on a massive corpus of text and code from the internet. We're talking trillions of tokens. That's like reading every book in the Library of Congress 1,000 times over. And it's not just text. It's code, from GitHub and other sources. That means Qwen can write Python, debug JavaScript, and even explain complex algorithms. It's like having a software engineer on standby. This is called pre-training, and it's where the model learns the basics of language and reasoning. But that's just the beginning. After pre-training, there's fine-tuning. This is where they teach the model to follow instructions and answer questions in a helpful way. They use a technique called RLHF, or reinforcement learning from human feedback. Human trainers rate the model's responses, and the model learns from those ratings. It's like training a dog, but with math. And the result? A model that not only knows a lot but knows how to communicate. But here's a surprising fact: the training data for Qwen includes a lot of Chinese content. So open source isn't just a philosophical choice. It's a practical one. It's about trust, transparency, and control. And that's why Qwen is leading the charge. Chapter 6. Putting it to work. So what can you actually do with Qwen 3.8? Let's get practical. Imagine you're a small business owner. You want to automate your customer service. With Qwen, you can build a chatbot that answers FAQs, handles refunds, and even recommends products. And because it runs locally, you don't have to send your customers' data to a third party. That's a huge privacy win. Or maybe you're a student. You can use Qwen to summarize long articles, generate study guides, or even help you write essays. But it's not just for beginners. Qwen can also generate code. You can ask it to write a Python script to analyze your sales data, and it'll do it in seconds. It can explain the code, too, so you actually learn something. And for the creatives out there, Qwen can write stories, poems, and even song lyrics. They wanted to make a model that could think, reason, and even write code. And they wanted to give it away for free. That's a bold move, especially when you're competing with giants. But they had a vision. They believed that AI shouldn't be locked behind paywalls. It should be accessible to everyone. So they started small, with a 7 billion parameter model. Then they scaled up. And now, with 27 billion parameters, Qwen 3.8 is a serious contender. But here's the kicker: it's not just about size. It's about how you use it. And that's what we're going to explore today. So fasten your seatbelt, because this is going to be a wild ride. The community effect. On the MMLU test, which measures knowledge across 57 subjects, Qwen scores around 65%. That's on par with models like GPT 3.5. But where Qwen really shines is in reasoning. On the GSM 8K test, which involves grade school math problems, Qwen gets over 70%. That's better than many larger models. And on Human Eval, which tests code generation, Qwen achieves a pass at one score of about 50%. That means half the time, it writes working code on the first try. But benchmarks aren't just about raw scores. They're about real-world performance. Ethics and safety. That gives it a unique perspective. It's not just a Western model. It's a global one. And that's reflected in its performance. It can translate between languages, understand cultural nuances, and even write poetry in classical Chinese. So when you use Qwen, you're tapping into a rich, diverse knowledge base that's truly international. Chapter 5. The Open Source Revolution. Most people think open source AI is a nice idea but not practical. But Qwen is proving them wrong. When Alibaba released Qwen 3.8, they didn't just give you the weights. What's next? More parameters usually mean more complexity, more nuance, and better performance. But 27 billion is a sweet spot. It's big enough to handle complex tasks, but small enough to run on a decent laptop. That's the genius of it. You don't need a supercomputer to use it. You can download it and run it locally, which is a significant shift for privacy and customization. And the name itself tells a story. It's not just a random label. It's a philosophy. Should you care? It's about smart design. And that's why Qwen is punching above its weight class. So if you're looking for a model that can hold its own, Qwen 3.8 is a serious contender. But don't just take my word for it. Try it yourself. The benchmarks are just the beginning. Now, I've covered the basics of Qwen 3.8, what it is, how it works, and what it can do. In the next part, we'll dive into real-world applications, the challenges of running it, and how it compares to other models. Stay tuned. We've talked about what Qwen 3.8 27B can do, but let's step back and ask, what problem do AI agents actually solve? It's not about making chatbots better. It's about the last-mile problem in automation. Traditional software automates deterministic workflows, if this, then that. But the real world is messy. Emails arrive in varied formats, APIs change, exceptions pile up. An AI agent, powered by a model like Qwen 3.8 27B, can parse that messy input, infer intent, and decide on a course of action without a human pre-coding every branch. For example, a customer service agent can read a refund request, check the order database, and issue a refund, all without a rules engine. The key mechanism is tool use. The model is trained to output structured calls, like JSON, that invoke external functions. Qwen 3.8 27B excels here because of its strong instruction following and function calling benchmarks. It scores over 90% on the Berkeley function calling leaderboard. That means it knows when to call a search API, when to write to a database, and when to ask for clarification. The result? You can build an agent that handles 80% of customer queries autonomously, cutting response time from hours to seconds. That's the problem, reducing the cost of unstructured tasks. And that's what agents, and models like this, are really for. When you type a request to Qwen 3.8 27B, you're not just sending text, you're initiating a cascade of discrete computational steps. First, the input is tokenized into subword units, roughly 4 characters each on average. For a 27B parameter model, this happens at the speed of about 40 tokens per second on a single A100 GPU. Each token is converted into a high-dimensional vector, 5,120 dimensions in this case, capturing its semantic context. These vectors are then processed through 64 transformer layers. In each layer, self-attention mechanisms compute relationships between every token and every other token, a quadratic operation that, for a 2048 token prompt, means over 4 million attention pairs per layer. The model uses 32 attention heads, each focusing on different linguistic patterns, syntax, coreference, or logical connectors. After attention, feed-forward networks with 20,480 hidden units transform the representations, applying nonlinear activations like SWI-GLU. Crucially, the model employs group query attention, reducing memory usage by sharing key-value caches across 4 heads, which speeds inference by 30% without significant quality loss. Finally, a softmax layer converts logits into probability distributions over the 151,936 token vocabulary. The highest probability token is selected, appended to the input, and the process repeats, auto-regressively generating each new token until an end-of-sequence token appears. This entire loop, from your instruction to the final action, runs in under 10 seconds for typical queries, orchestrating billions of parameters in perfect sequence. Thank you for watching Agent Amigos. If this talk sparked something in you, hit like, subscribe to Agent Amigos, and share it with one person who needs to hear it. Knowledge is better when it is shared. See you at the next talk.